Hey, hi, welcome. Yeah, here we are. Let me just turn the music down and we can get started. So welcome. Thank you for advanced questions right off the bat and getting into it. I look forward to today. The question was brought to me originally by Safety regarding the golden rules of safety. And so I'll talk about how I came to the idea of this stream and maybe how to lead to some upcoming streams. But first, let's talk about just quickly the chat rules so that we can get all of that stuff over and done with and move on. So like anything else, please participate. Enjoying all of the dynamics in the chat right off the bat. So awesome. Introduce yourself, who you are, where you're from, what you do. I appreciate it. I appreciate getting to know everybody, meeting people from different countries, different jurisdictions, and just, telling me about yourself a little bit in the chat is awesome. Ask and answer questions. It's all about pooling our knowledge, collaborating, and just building community amongst safety professionals. To be quite honest, none of us were born with safety knowledge as we emerged from the womb. We've all gathered it over long periods, and you know what? It's good to share. It's good to share of our failures. It's good to share of our successes. But above all and beyond all, be civil. No name calling, no insults. All of us are here to learn. And then finally, of course, this is discussion. It's not considered professional advice. It's not considered anything other than collaboration, community, and discussion. Like anything else, if it was professional advice, you know what? There would be contracts and money and so forth and signing of things. So it is what it is. But I do appreciate every one of you that's joined, and I appreciate all of the questions all of the time. Saifuldin brought us that question regarding what are the golden rules of safety. And you know what? I've heard lots, and there's been lots emerge, and lots of different people have different ideas. In fact, I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll go on the net and I'll research. And you know what? There was golden rules for safety in construction, golden rules for safety in healthcare, golden rules for safety in retail, golden safety rules. There was the top 10 rules for safety managers, all sorts of things. So I thought, you know what? Why don't we start off with the top 10 rules for HSE professionals? And of course, you can contribute into the chat what you think is some of your top 10, and we'll discuss it and go over it. We might end up coming out with the top 15 or 20. I'm not sure. I'm going to share with you my top 10. And like anything else, a lot of times these top 10s come about from, painful lessons learned. And so, yeah, let's without further ado, unless somebody's got a question or anything that they want to bring up right off the bat, let's start with the top 10. We'll go through it, and then I'll have some Q&A because there's always already some questions in the queue. Yeah. So let me bring up, top 10 rules for safety professionals. And you know what? As far as it goes with safety, it's HSE, H&S, OHS, whatever it is. We're all safety professionals. And so let's just consider what our top 10 are. And so right off the bat, we have to understand that humans are possessed to some degree with the power of foresight, yet often we learn things the hard way through disaster, through mistakes. This is a quote that I grabbed from a scientist from the United States, David Grinspoon, and he's absolutely right. 100%. I couldn't go over it more, that the best lessons we learn are sometimes the most painful ones. And now, like them, hate them, love them, leave them, whatever you want. Donald Trump has a better one. He said, always try to learn from other people's mistakes, not your own. It's much cheaper that way. And in fact, it is. It's much easier that way if you learn from somebody else's mistakes. That's why I'm always happy to share mine. And God knows I've made lots. So part of this top 10 is some of the pitfalls that I've experienced, but also some of the things that I've observed through my career. So let's get started with the 10th one. Now, mental health in health and safety is absolutely important. A lot of people will think it's not as big a deal as you would think, but really and truthfully, it is. We have to, and we've come to the realization in the last little while that mental health affects physical health. In fact, in the last decade and a half or so, there's been a lot of research into it, and there's been a lot of adoption with mental health initiatives into health and safety. So I'm not saying make it your whole focus. It's absolutely important to prevent falls from heights and splats on the ground, people being hit by moving vehicles, people encountering shear and pinch points and losing fingers. All of that is absolutely important. But what I'm saying is, whatever you do, don't ignore the importance of mental health. Build it into your health and safety program. And it's not going to happen overnight. Honestly, nothing happens overnight. If it hasn't been there to begin with, it's going to take some time to get there. The other thing is, don't make half-hearted efforts. You know what? It's you betray everything when you're making half-hearted efforts. You honestly do. So if you're going to do it right and do it all the way. Okay? But you might have to, as I've talked about in the past, plan it like a project and have waypoints and KPIs to understand when you've got there. Now, the other thing to understand is, when it comes right down to it, safety is not only your job, okay? And that assumption is made. It's a difficult thing in industry. It really, really is that a lot of times people will think it's your job, and they will, how should I say, transfer the responsibility and accountability over to you, or they will attempt to do it. I can remember once when I first started out, a director of a department, section and department, called me and then emailed me and followed up, of course. And he said, you know what? Safety is your job. Safety is absolutely your job. And so I need signs put up outside of all of my areas. And realistically, I think it's yours to pay for. And so you know what? I took the money out of my budget and I got all of these signs and I did it. And whoa, that was one of the dumber things I've ever done. And I didn't have to do it. So whatever you do, don't inherit or accept it. Okay? If it's not yours, don't take it. But you have to remember one thing. If you take it, you own it. You do. Honestly, if you take it, you own it. It's yours. And you've got to see it through. But it's okay to push back. But remember, when you push back with logic and respect. I remember another director or not a director, a manager in a section, was complaining about new hire orientations and new hire safety orientations. And he said to me, well, what's your department doing? What's health and safety doing? How come you're not doing this? And it's a valid question, frustrated because he was overloaded as it was, and it's a valid question. But here's the thing. When it comes right down to it, I did have to push back because we didn't have the resources. I had a team of two, and well, me and two others. And we didn't have the resources for the whole entire organization. So I said, you know what? In the past 2 months, we've hired 400 people through the organization. And now trying to get all of them through that safety orientation prior to starting work, there is no possible way to do it. So what we have to do is give you the tools to be able to do it yourself and go from there. And you know what? He understood this is an issue after I push back, but push back with logic and respect. You can't just say, I'm not doing it. You have to, once again, building relationships is incredibly important as a health and safety professional. Maybe we can chalk that up to rule 11 or 12. I don't know. But building relationships is absolutely important. Now, you just got to give me a sec here. I'm just experiencing a camera difficulty with a different camera. So just hang on a sec. Whoops. Not that camera. This camera. I apologize for this. Using cam links from Elgato, and you know what? They have their issues, and I'm likely going to have to try and go to something else, but until then, yeah, there we are. So, back at it. So now, on to the next thing is, yes, Virginia, there is a safety culture. Okay, absolutely, 100%. There is a safety culture, and it's important. The very first thing that you need to do is understand your safety culture as soon as possible. Understand where you are in your safety culture. A lot of times people will come on the scene and they will think that an organization has one of a polar opposite. Either it's a really good safety culture or conversely, a really bad one. And not understanding where the safety culture sits in between. And yes, you may inherit some really ugly safety cultures, but it doesn't mean that it's all that bad for that organization. It might be really good at that snapshot and that point, even though you think it's deplorable. So understand your safety culture and how it compares to the organization and the organization's history. It's tantamount. It's super important. Now, the other thing is it needs to be high on your list, because if you create an environment for continuous improvement, then improvement will continue. But if you don't think that your safety culture is important, then you know what? You're going to do yourself a disservice in rolling out programs, rolling out safe work procedures, changing things, implementing corrective actions, etc. The other rule to remember is if it took years to decline, you are not going to fix it overnight. Not at all. It's if it's taken a long time to happen, it's going to take a long time to fix. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I can remember I've tried to go to an organization and fix it right away. And applaudable efforts, I guess, but you know what? It doesn't happen that way. Honestly, it doesn't. It's like trying to turn a freightliner, a big, huge ship, on a dime. It's not going to work. You're going to have to start slow and persistent and purposeful processes to get that ship righted and going the right direction. Now, the other thing that you have to remember is this. In the absence of good information and good instruction, incidents happen. Okay, absolutely. And I'll have a point to clarify this further as we go along. But our default is using our personal experience. So if we have a learned methodology up to this point, then you know what? That's what we're going to rely on. Good, bad, right, wrong, or otherwise, that's what we're going to rely on. So it's very important that you understand that information and instruction has to happen right away. It has to be an integral part of the modus operandi of any organization, especially when it comes to safe work procedures and proper procedures. Now, if there is not credible instruction and credible information, we use, and this is a Kevinism, we use what's called guess judgment. Now, we're going to try and form our best judgment based on experience, but if we don't have the experience, then we're going to guess at what's the best process. And so really and truthfully, do you want somebody guessing the right way to do something? So always, once again, information and instruction beat all when it comes right down to it. So you have to understand, training and instruction reduce incidents. And so whatever you do, whenever you have any part of your safety program, training and instruction and review and revision should be an integral part of it, because it's going to be this full circle process. Initially train, review or reassess how performance is going, reevaluate, edit, and then do the whole circle all over again. And that's what continuous improvement works like. Now, we're getting down there. We're almost halfway. In the absence of, pardon me, not in the absence, I already did that. But as far as it goes with causal factors and root cause, and you know what? The world is divided over it. And I do get the odd time I get some pretty harsh comments. Why are you continuing to chase root cause? It's an old thing. Yes and no. Root cause is necessary, but what we need to do is understand chasing causal factors alone can create incorrect corrective actions. Okay, so, and I've seen it before. I've seen organizations where they will investigate an incident, and they will look at one of the causal factors, and bang, they create a new safe work procedure, when realistically that safe work procedure is incidental. It's likely can be another line added on the existing safe work procedure, or it may be running parallel to 2 or 3 similar ones, because that's a habit that's occurred. And then what you have is you have these 200 or 300 safe work procedures for a position that, you know what, a person's going to look at and say, I have to pack a lunch before I can read these. And they're not going to get read. So when you just chase causal factors, you run into an issue. So the answer is do both. Okay, investigate your situations, determine all your causal factors, then work, and whether it be the 5 whys or a fault tree analysis, whatever you want to do, understand what the root cause is. Once you've understood the root cause, you can create positive change the right way. And I honestly, I was a person that just said causal factors is the only way to go. It's only causal factors, nothing more. Root cause is old, and I was one of those people, but I got to say I'm a convert, because I started looking at the holistic pictures and started looking at what's wrong with that picture. So you have to understand, if you're not understanding root cause and understanding it and embracing it, it results in incorrect corrective actions. Because if you're just taking causal factors and putting them into place, then you're not going to have the right corrective actions, because you're not going to have a holistic approach. But if you're not understanding causal factors in the whole process, you're going to end up with incorrect corrective procedures. So it goes back to what I said, where if you're just embracing causal factors, you're going to create new safe work procedures, or you may be creating them all for naught, because that wasn't the issue to begin with. Take, for instance, you're ending up with, and you've had 2 in a row in the company kitchen where cooks helpers have been cutting their fingers. And so you implement knife safety and everything else like that. But then if you're to delve into it further and understand that they were using community knives, and nobody was sharpening, maintaining, or stealing them, and stealing is like this when you do that. And so the knives weren't looked after properly, and they were using dull knives, and as a result, ending up with cuts. So investigate it well, determine the root cause, and in that case, you might have a good preventive maintenance system in place where the knives are sharpened at a regular schedule, or the workers are taught to sharpen their knives, and the emphasis on having proper tools for the proper job and well-maintained tools for the proper job becomes what you're going to do. So honestly, yeah, I can't get over it enough. You have to understand that both have to be embraced, both the causal factors and the root cause. Doing both will give you, how should I say, the best preventive medicine of all. Now, we're almost there. We're almost to the top 5. Nobody's added any other questions, so yeah, let's continue on. And the top 5, and these are mine. These are in my order that I find is most important. So that's why I've ordered them from 10 to 1. But like anything else, let me know what you think. Let me know what you think are the top 5 or the top 10. Or if you join the stream late or view this after the stream's been live, leave me something in the comments. I appreciate all of the comments I got. Once again, it does help. And it helps me to get better. The questions, the comments, everything. I appreciate all of the interaction. Now, as I said, don't get bogged down by policy. And no matter what, policy is an important part of, how should we say, workplace function. It's an important part on governance in an organization. But if we as health and safety professionals get bogged down by policy, it hinders more than, nothing hinders more than bureaucracy. It does. And the reason is because policy requires lots of effort to instill or change. Often you'll have policy committees, or if you have corporate lawyers or whatever the case may be. So if you think about it, if you have a health and safety policy for every single part of your health and safety program, you're going to have a slow-moving program or a slow-moving health and safety management system. So the idea is reduce it. I always recommend no more than 1, and if you have to, 2 health and safety policies. You may have a health and safety, overarching health and safety policy and statement, which is the best process to do. Or you may have a health and safety policy and statement, and then something else that maybe empowers your health and safety committee or the health and safety professional. But when you start to have a lockout policy, when you start to have an inspection policy, you know what? It ends up really and truthfully bogging things down. So the best thing that you could ever do is understand that instruction over rules over policy is the best approach. Okay? Because like I said, policy takes a long time to change. Rules can be edited, and I've made a video about it, and if anybody wants, I'll leave a link in the description. But rules can be changed quicker, much easier than policy. In fact, if you look at it with the recent plague, we have a lot of organizations, some of them did policy and then struggled to change it, and it took a long process. Others instilled rules, like rules for masks, rules for social distancing, rules for hybrid work or working from home, etc. And then as soon as circumstances changed, those rules got either edited, changed, reviewed, whatever the case may be. So a lot of times, rules will help you to have a more agile health and safety program. However, once again, too much policy makes it too slow. Rules can be changed quickly, but nothing beats training. Okay? Training someone to do something right and giving proper instruction, above all and beyond all, is far more, how should we say, productive and works better for your outcome than instilling a policy, trying to make sure that everybody has read the policy, understands the policy, is committed to the policy. But you teach people the correct way to do things and make it simple. You know what? It's simple, really. Correct training and instruction plus correct performance equals desire. It does. If people know how to do things properly and are corrected and you ensure that they are doing them properly, then you know what? They'll have a desire. Nobody goes, well, I suppose they might. We'll always have that negligent heart out there. But most people will understand that when they're doing something correctly, it has correct performance and it makes them feel good. Honestly, it does. New controls should not equal new hazards. And once again, I'll just take a drink here. The plague brought that to the forefront. A good example I know a person who maintained overhead doors, or still does. and went into an organization to fix their overhead controller, and mask only. Have to have a mask, have to be social distance, the whole works. Nobody is permitted on the site without a mask. And hey, understand that completely. I really do. But the person got up to the top of the ladder with their safety glasses on, and their mask on, and because they're working overhead, they had to wear safety glasses. And before they could even get the controller open, their glasses were all fogged up. They couldn't see their feet, they couldn't see the ladder, and of course they got a little panicked, so they came down and said, that's it, refused to do the job. And now, like in a lot of jurisdictions, you have the right to refuse unsafe work, because that control of everybody having to wear a mask created a new hazard. So we have to remember that new controls shouldn't create new hazards. And it wasn't that difficult. I got a phone call, and of course, some good professional advice. Didn't change hands, or no money changed hands, but good professional advice. I said, well, why don't you create a 12-foot barricade from the ladder, so twice the 6-foot social distance that was required. Have the person wear their mask until they're set up and everybody's cleared out of the way. Then once everybody's cleared out and away from that area, have them take their mask off, put their glasses on, climb up to the top of the ladder, do their work, come down, reapply the mask. Bob's your uncle, done. And you know what? No problem. So once again, new control shouldn't be new hazard. And a lot of times what happens is us as safety professionals, innovation is key. It's awesome. Innovation is essential. But remember mousetraps. And when I say remember mousetraps, it means this. We will always attempt to build a better mousetrap, but you know what? Those old little Victor wooden ones that have been being sold for 120 years still catch mice. And so if it's a matter of an engineering control of a simple barrier and good administrative controls of training, instruction, signage, and then PPE, if that's working, you don't necessarily have to innovate. You do that if those controls are reducing production, and then you may need to innovate and may need to adopt some new controls. You may, instead of a barrier, you might go to an interlock. You might use things like electric eyes, etc., in an effort to increase production but still have that kind of safety there. But once again, you don't need to build a better mousetrap. Creating those new controls can't create the new hazards. And above all and beyond all, when you're implementing controls, reevaluate, reevaluate, reevaluate. Nothing is ever one and done. You can't just like put the book on the shelf and say, done. The idea of continuous improvement is absolutely important, and it's absolutely imperative. Now, getting down to the top two. I can't emphasize this enough. Authorship leads to ownership, which leads to commitment. You've likely seen it in some of my videos before, and I absolutely embrace it. And I got to tell you, my success in being able to get adoption quicker with safe work procedures or different initiatives, or even eliciting collaboration in safety reviews, when I started using this process, everything went up. We have to remember that involvement creates community. And if you think about it, when people are involved, a community is created, a safety community. What happens is culture changes. Because basically a culture is a collective or shared set of beliefs and values in a group of people. And so if you're involving a group of people in that change, then change gets adopted quicker and that culture shift goes the right way. Okay? But you have to remember, ownership and commitment always come with a cost. And that cost is that involvement. But that cost also has an inherent cost of you. You've got to elicit it. You've got to create that environment. I can't tell you how many times that it was kind of like pushing people from the back and pulling them from the front. But once you got them to that stage, they were quite happy with it. And understanding And it happens with all of us. If we own it, we're committed to it. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen people buy an old clunker vehicle and it's theirs. And pretty soon they're washing it, repairing it, and changing parts on it. And that old clunker vehicle is all of a sudden, you know what, something that's not that bad and definitely drivable. And then I've seen it with people buying brand new vehicles. If they buy brand new vehicles and they're doing that same thing and maintaining it, that brand new vehicle lasts them a long time. But if they're disregarding it and they're not having any commitment to it, it declines really quick. So that same thing is with your safety culture, your safety management system, your safety program, or even any of the safe work documents that you've edited. That same thing, getting that authorship with groups of people collaborating, they become owners of it and they have a commitment to its success. I can't state this one enough. Yeah, and you know what? Honestly, I have seen time and time again where, how should I put this? Safety professionals make things way more difficult than it has to be. Okay? Please keep it simple. Keep it simple. I had one of my mentors once say, Kevin, you do really well saying in a paragraph what you could say in a grunt. Oh. Keeping it simple and understanding that we have diverse workforces. We have people where the language spoken in the workplace might be that person's second language. We might have other people that have certain learning disabilities, etc. We need to keep things simple. Intricacy doesn't necessarily equal effective. And I've seen a hazard assessment process where the originator, the person that wrote it, wanted everybody to do a personal hazard assessment. Then that became a positional hazard assessment, which became the job hazard assessment. Listening to it, I couldn't even understand it. I was lost. Okay? We have to realize and understand that complicated processes does not ensure job security. In fact, chances are when you make it too complicated and too intricate and too difficult to follow, it might not have that job security effect that you're desiring. In fact, it might just have the opposite. I know myself, chances are I would likely send you by the wayside. Okay, so remember, simple to understand plus brevity, in other words, brief, using only the necessary amount of words and time equals performed. If you do that, people are more apt to do things. And I honestly, I've taken and I've been able to excel at it mainly because, well, I don't call myself lazy. I like to think of myself as efficient. But I don't want to read a 20-page document where a 5-pager will do. So I've always made it my effort whenever I could, when I've gone to different organizations or joined or consulted, is taken and squashed those documents down and got rid of the superfluous stuff, got rid of the fluff, got rid of anything that was too difficult to understand, made it simple, and you know what? Adoption came about. It's the truth. And so there's my top 10, but I do have a bonus one. The bonus tip, shall we say. I wonder if we could have, if I distill this out, I'll create some fanfare music. So the bonus tip is this. You are not the smartest person in the room. In fact, always assume that there's someone there smarter than you. Do it. Assume that somebody else in the room, or more somebodies, are smarter than you. Okay? Don't think that you're going to rest on accolades and clapping and applause and everything else like that. If you've brought something to the forefront, if you're initiating a safe work process, or you're doing a paradigm shift and realigning the health and safety management system with the company's vision, mission, and values, which is a good thing, don't think it's because you're a genius, okay? A subject matter expert does not mean you're a genius. I have a friend of mine, he's a geologist, and I can tell you that I haven't met anybody smarter about rocks, sediment, mineral extraction, or anything else like that. And you can hand him a rock and he can go on for hours about that rock. And extremely good at his job. But other things like computers, for instance, he's totally lost. He'll say, Kevin, I need your help. Because he understands that he's a really good geologist. But he needs help with computers. You're the same way. You are a good subject matter expert with health and safety, and maybe expanded and with all of the facets of health and safety, like claims management and job hazard evaluation and all of those other facets that go into it. But still, you're a safety management, or you're a safety professional and a subject matter expert on that. So don't be afraid to look for and ask for help and contribution and value other people's opinions. Because once again, it also leads to some of the other points I've made about authorship equals ownership, which equals commitment, and fostering a good safety culture, etc. If you work to form a community within your organization, you know what? It's going to be huge. Absolutely is. I can't tell you how many times that I've tried to go it on my own and be that only guy, and it doesn't work for me. It doesn't. It's not that I can't do things on my own. It's just realistically, you need to be a team player. You need to have that. And we're meant to work in a community. We're meant to have other people around us. So think about that. Anyway, if you have other rules that you think are the right ones to live by, like I said, add them into the chat right now, or leave me comments on it, and I appreciate it. I'm thinking, and let me know in the comments or in the chat what you think of these two for a couple of live streams as well. Top 10 rules for safety leaders, and then a top 10 golden safety rules for all industries, to make them as applicable to every industry, whether that be construction, healthcare, retail, food and hospitality, things like that. So I was thinking of those, and I value your opinion. So let me know what your thoughts are on that. I'd appreciate it. But anyway, now question and answer, and you can see them in the chat. Seifeldien's got a couple of questions, and then David's brought one, so I'll talk about all three. Now, Seifeldien's question is, can you explain the difference between a safety audit versus a safety inspection? Realistically, both look for the same. A safety inspection is a smaller snapshot. Oh, and I just froze by the looks of it. It was a momentary freeze. I don't know what happened there. That was weird. But a safety inspection is a small snapshot, whereas an audit will take also a snapshot, but over a broader amount of time. And an audit looks for some other things depending on the protocols of the audit. So, for instance, you might have a compliance audit, and I'll start with the audit first. The compliance audit looks at every facet within the organization and notes the compliance. So you'll have a lot of different protocols and a lot of different points that you'll look at. Say, for instance, you're looking at the office environment. You're looking at the administration environment and we'll talk about a manufacturing facility. So what are the compliance pieces for that office environment? And you're going to look at them from a lot of different aspects. And they might be right to the point of always ensuring that hazard assessments are done, because that's the foundation. Understanding that those hazards are controlled. Then looking at different procedures within the organization. Are those organizational procedures that are meant to alleviate those hazards being carried out? So compliance within the organization as well, and matching all of that together. Whereas an inspection is usually a one-day thing, or a certain time limit. It might be a few hours, whatever, going through the facility, but just having inspection points to check. Both will end up coming out with some of the same things. You'll end up coming out with corrective actions, suggestions for improvement, etc. But once again, the audit looks at, and a lot of times audits may go from year to year or month to month or quarter to quarter, etc. Some organizations have an ongoing auditing process where they will have quarterly audits. But depending on the situation, they may have quarterly audits of just one section, and that section doesn't get audited again until the following year because the next quarter is a different section. Both are effective. I find that if you're going to do audits, they should be annual versus continuous, because what happens is people are always on the edge, always on the wondering what's going to occur, and why am I doing this audit yet again? And they become almost, what's the best way to put it? Kind of like almost shell-shocked and PTSD, for want of a better term, with the process. And so they become very unaccepting to it. So yet if they're prepared for this annual audit, it isn't as much of a shock to them, and it isn't as much of a big deal. And so they're more prepared for it, and they're more accepting of it. Inspections, same thing. If people, a lot of times you'll have safety inspections, like a pre-use inspection, where you're going to, every day when you use a forklift, you're going to do a walk around and do a pre-inspection. Those are acceptable, and those are accepted by everybody as a process of doing business. But just picture if you were having to audit that forklift every time. Pretty soon, yeah, no thanks, not interested. So same thing with safety audits in the workplace. So to just put it all into perspective, safety audits are usually a longer snapshot, depending on what you're looking at. Usually they're a compliance or an adherence audit, and over the course of a year. Some organizations make them shorter and quarterly audits to fit into the full year. As I said, usually problematic. Safety inspections, on the other hand, are usually smaller snapshots, periodic, couple of hours every month, couple of hours a day, whatever the case may be. And safety inspections are usually split up into a couple of different types: pre-use inspections, post-use inspections, and then a worksite inspection or a work area inspection. So that was that. And I hope, Saifuldin, that answered your question. I hope it was a long roundabout way, but both are very intricate in their activities, that's for sure. And you want to know what ISO is. ISO is the International Standards Organization. And there's this push to adopt standards across the globe, globally, for health and safety. And while I agree with it, it's very tough to do because, well, one, it's kind of a bureaucratic way to approach things. But number two is each jurisdiction and each culture and each country has a different way of doing things. We can't even get standards. I live in Canada. We only have 35 million people here. We have 10 provinces, 3 territories, and we have, it's a big place. We're the 3rd largest country in the world, or 2nd largest? I can't remember. But we can't get standards across the board. Each standard for occupational health and safety, there are a lot of similarities, but they differ between the provinces and territories. We do have a federal standard, the what we call the CLC2, the Canada Labour Code Part 2, for federal employees and federally mandated employees, but we don't have standards for everybody across the board. So now picture globally. I understand the idea of ISO, and it works really well in a lot of different applications. I don't know if in our lifetime it's going to come to, if it's going to come to that, if we're ever going to be able to get to a worldwide standard. I don't know. But that's what ISO is, the International Standards Organization. So hopefully, Saifuldin, that answered your question. David, I want to make sure I pronounce your last name properly. Is it Greenuff or Greeno? He brought about an interesting question for a video series, and it is very interesting. I want to explore it, but to do it well, it's going to have to take some time. But he says, I have a question for you. Is it possible to create a series for those of us who are students on building and identifying criteria for HSE audits, right from the protocols to the end result? And yeah, I think it would be. It's going to take some work, and it might end up being, and I think, Greeno, okay, thanks, David. I think what it might be is it might be a good way for me to do a stream and do it as a lecture and a Q&A and start with each point. So let me plan it out, and I will commit to it. I won't commit to when, but I will commit to it. And I think a stream might be the best process because it can give that lecture and question and answer environment. What do you think of that, David? Do you think that would be a good idea? Sorry if I'm not looking at the camera, I'm looking at the chat screen. Because I think that might be the best venue for it, because then it allows a better two-way communication for it. Understanding, and I think what I would likely do is look at it as health and safety, compliance, and awareness audit, because both of those work together. Because if you're judging awareness, then you're going to also end up with a better idea on compliance, which in turn gives you, and maybe we can do all three together, gives you an idea of your safety culture. Because safety culture becomes really important as well. Because once again, fostering a healthy or fostering a robust health and safety culture creates an environment where continuous improvement is possible because there's a desire to continually improve. I froze. Okay, hang on. Let me fix that. I hate these things. I'll just fix this camera while I'm doing this. And so I apologize for that. I apologize for freezing. Not much I can do about it, I guess. But I'll have to work on remedying that. Yeah. So there we go. Now we're back. Yeah. I froze momentarily, but yeah, well, now I'm unfrozen. So, before I end the stream, we've been going for a while. What time is it? Oh, 9:48. Not too bad. Is there any other questions? Does anybody have any thoughts? Oh, you could still hear me. Well, that was good to hear, David. Maybe what I should do is start turning these things into a podcast as well. But is there any other questions? Does anybody have anything burning on their mind? Thoughts? David, where are you from, if I can ask? And Saifuldin, if you're on the chat, where are you from? Must take a while. Anyway, Ontario. Oh, good stuff. How was Canada Day? Believe it or not, I spent my Canada Day doing a lot of yard work. How do you land your job, first job without any experience? And you know what? That is an awesome question. The best thing that you can do is, a lot of times during interviews, you're going to get asked, in your experience, how have you done this? Say, for instance, here's a good one. Here's what I always ask in interviews. In your experience, let's say that you encounter a worker who is using the top step of a stepladder. Can tell me how you might correct him or her, and use your past experiences. What I've found works really well in interviews is this, and I'll talk about two different things here. Nizzo, I think that's how we pronounce it, is just say what you should be doing. You can just say, you know what? I've never encountered that. Don't say I have no experience, but I've never encountered that. However, I think what I would do is say, hey, could you do me a favor? Come down here for a second. Let's talk about this. And just review with them the safe process in using the stepladder, and being clear about it, and making sure that they understood it, and then let them go back to work and just observe them, and then let them know that you're going to follow up with their supervisor and just say, hey, I saw this, and I just thought I'd bring this to your attention. Because the last thing you want to do is have all sorts of sidebar deals. And so that's a good way to answer that. And what I did as a person starting out is I did a lot of volunteer work wherever I could. And so I would help with revamping and reviewing health and safety programs, or revamping safe work procedures. Or one of the things I did is created a process to evaluate emergency response procedures. And then I actually went out to a sawmill along with a friend of mine, and we did it for free. We did a session for free, didn't charge the organization. And so I gathered experience that way. And I know it sucks having to do experience and get your experience for free. But what you can do is say, and put it on your resume and be honest. In an effort to gain experience, these are some of the things I've done. And then if the organization is willing to give you a reference, that always helps as well. Like I said, I hate having to do stuff for free, but sometimes it's the way to break into the market and break into the process. I do remember when I got my first official health and safety job beyond being a consultant and trainer, and I got asked, well, exactly what's your experience being a health and safety employee? And I was quite frank. I said, I've had none. However, I've done a lot of consulting work, and I started off doing a lot of volunteer consulting work, and that's where I am today. And in fact, some of my references are some of the people that I've done that consulting work for, and it got me my first job as an official health and safety professional in an organization. So does that help? Like I said, I hate to, working for free is terrible, and it's really not what we want to do, but it's kind of how I broke into things. And there must be a significant delay in the chat. And I'm going to have to see if I can speed that up so it's more real time. Because when I asked David where you're from, it took a little bit for it to come up in the chat. So I'm going to have to see what I can do to trim that up. And by the way, I'm from Calgary, Alberta. I was originally from British Columbia, Western Province, here in Canada. And it took a lot understanding the difference between the two jurisdictions, because by all means, David, sure. By all means, yeah, you can refer to reach out. But even jumping between the two jurisdictions, between BC and Alberta, BC had a very prescriptive, and still does, a very prescriptive health and safety legislation, whereas Alberta was more performance-based, went prescriptive, and now they're sort of getting less prescriptive. Oh, well, good to hear you're from Calgary. Good stuff. Yeah. Honestly, like anything else, we all struggle, but once you get that first job, then things work out quite well. Yeah, my best of luck to you, and I do hope that you do end up with some good full-time employment. And there are a lot, just keep applying. That's the best thing that I can share with you. Just keep applying. Are you going, have you got formal certification? Have you gone to school? Good stuff, David. If I may ask, what institution are you doing your health and safety through? And have we chatted on LinkedIn? I almost think that we have. I think we might have. Your name sounds familiar. Oh, you Calgary. Okay, yes. I sort of thought your name sounded familiar. Okay, good to know. Good to know. I did mine through BCIT. There was very few. The U of Calgary, when I did mine, because, yeah, I'm old, didn't have anything, an offering. They were still developing their offering at the time. Oh, you're a scaffolder by trade. Huh. Wow. And completing your NCSO, Nizzo, in Alberta is a good thing. Believe it or not, you'll likely find that the intricacy of the NCSO process isn't nearly as tight and as, how should I say, involved as your health and safety certificate from the U of C. But I find in Alberta that NCSO, I don't have one, but I find it opens a lot of doors. I'm what's called CRSP, a Canadian Registered Safety Professional, and I'm a Canadian Risk Manager. And good for you, David, that you're going for your diploma online. Honestly, that's both open a lot of doors. A diploma, a certificate, and the NCSO open a lot of doors. But like anything else, employers all want experience, and it becomes that chicken and egg thing. Difficult. And so, like I said, if you can do some volunteer work at all. Another thing, I don't know, you can look for youth organizations, churches, not-for-profits, and see if you can provide them any help as well. Sometimes those things help to work out. And also, too, is volunteerism does go a long way on a resume. Oh, really? They do have a master's in OHS, because for the longest time, the only one that you could get was through McGill, and then they shut it down. Yeah. That's good to know that they have a graduate degree. However, I don't know that I could fit in that along with a full-time job, doing a YouTube channel, and the volunteer work that I do. I'd likely have to give up sleeping and eating, and both of them I've come very accustomed to. So if I decide to go that route and higher learning, something's got to go, and I don't know that I want to give up the YouTube channel. Very cool. It's good to know. Thank you, David. Very good. Yeah. But Nizzo, like I said, just keep plugging away. There is, and you know what? The other thing that's quite possible too is if you're working as a scaffolder for an organization, see if there's something that you can do and collaborate with. See if you can become a member of a health and safety committee or something to that effect. Also, those experiences, although not the full-time health and safety position, do help to pad and fill out a resume too. We all have to get somewhere, we do, and you eventually will. Yeah. So, any other questions? Because if not, what I'll do is I think I'll sign off. We've been on for about an hour and had some very good discussion. Lots of good discussion in the last little while. I appreciate it. I'll just do this so that I can have that for the people that watch the video later. Don't know if it's any help whatsoever, but I've watched growth in the channel. Like I said, I started the channel so that I could better my presentation skills and improve them. Because as a health and safety professional, presentation is huge. Whether you're presenting your findings after an incident investigation or trying to launch, and you're welcome, Nizzo, or you're trying to launch a new safe work procedure or a new process or a part or section of your health and safety program that's new, having good presentation skills is essential. Oh, yeah, sure, Nizzo. Fire me off the question. And while Nizzo's typing, I'll just finish my part. So the other thing is working on your presentation processes wherever you can is super helpful because it'll help you in a couple of things. One, Nizzo, for your interviews. And number two, as a health and safety professional, I can't tell you how many times I've had to do a PowerPoint, be up in front of a whiteboard, or using a projector and whiteboard. What is the first thing I do when I land my first job in a company? Interesting. I think what I try to do is twofold. Number one, and this is going back to the days when I used to train industrial first aid attendants and entry-level paramedics, is you have to properly assess a casualty before you can ever treat them. So I think what I do is I spend the mornings, I usually go in early, and what I've done is I've always spent the mornings before really anything is happening, reviewing documentation, reviewing the health and safety program, reviewing past health and safety committee meeting minutes, and other things like that to understand where they are at that point. And now, like if you don't find a good health and safety program, or you don't find minutes to a health and safety committee, or you find that things haven't been going well, that gives you some indications. Then put it together with and walking the different parts of the organization and doing that, getting those boots on the floor and looking at and observing things and seeing if what you read matches what you see. Once you are doing that, the next thing is start to talk to people because they can give you that back and they can provide you some feedback. When I talked to my boss when I took a position at a previous organization, very first day, walked in, we sat down, had coffee, and he said, "So what's your first order of business?" I said, "To learn about this place." He said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "I can't tell you what's wrong with it. I can't tell you what I need to fix until I learn about it." I said, "So you know what? Here's the deal. If you're okay with it, can you ask me that question in another month?" And he said, "That's exactly what I wanted to hear." And so that's what I did. I was reviewing documentation, collective agreements, health and safety program, health and safety committee meeting minutes, inspection results, incident investigations, looking at all of that, touring the place and seeing if the documentation matched what I saw, and then talking to people and getting their impression because it helped me to understand what the safety culture was. And then understanding all of that, you can start to prioritize and figure out what is okay, what you need to fix. Like if a casualty is breathing fine, good, wholesome, productive breaths, and they're bleeding. Obviously, you don't worry about their breathing at the moment you look after the bleeding. So the same thing. If you find that there's no issues with compliance, people are working fine, but health and safety committee meetings aren't occurring, and there's no health and safety committees going on whatsoever, that might be one of your first orders. Or you find that there's no health and safety policy and people are just going by guessing by God and everything's working out. Well, now you got bigger stuff. So I hope that helps. Look at the documentation so you can see in the background what you might be dealing with. Start looking at the organization to see that it matches the documentation. Start asking questions, okay, and talking to people, and then finding out if the talk matches the walk, which matches the documentation. Little bit of a long, drawn-out process, but that's how I handle things. And once again, that was by learning by making some very egregious mistakes. Did that help, Nizzo? It's just like when I was asked to collaborate and revamp a safety training delivery. Now, back a long time ago when I did it, I just went and I just revamped everything, tore it apart and changed everything. And it was good. It was good. It was well accepted. It was good. But little did I know that some of the people I was delivering the changed process to were involved in creating the first one. So the other thing is, too, is always history helps you no matter what. When you're going to do something, no matter what. I remember I had to go meet with someone who was an influential person within an organization, yet was doing a great many things wrong. So I went to the HR professional that hired me, and I said, can I have half an hour of your time sometime today? Because I had to meet with this person the next day. And she goes, I got time right now. So I sat down and I said, tell me about this person. What's your impression? Tell me about her. And so she gave me the wherewithal, and then I said, okay, so how would this be received if I talked about this? And she goes, oh, if you deliver it that way, not well. And so, okay, well, what are your tips? And so understanding the history behind some things also helps as well. Keep in mind, you got to use that with a grain of salt, a little bit of caution, because whenever you're talking to somebody, they also might have some personal biases. Yeah. So there we go. How about now? Any questions? Are we doing well? So you two folks, you're in Canada, so it's belated and everything. Happy Canada Day to you guys. And for the rest of you that might be tuning in later, yesterday was Friday, so it was Friday. Today's Saturday. Happy Saturday. Yeah. So if there's no other questions, then maybe what I'll do, whoops, I have gone away. There I am, I'm back. Thanks for joining in, and whatever you do, no matter what, doesn't matter if you're at the moment studying and working hard to attain certification, moving on and changing jobs in the health and safety world, whatever it is you're doing, be a good example, be a safety leader and a safety influencer. Think about safety, great. Talk about safety, but doing safety and always being above all and beyond all that good example is super important. Yeah. So take care, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your Saturday. And until we see each other again, and let me know in the comments, if you would, what you think on the idea of the next one being top 10 tips for safety leaders. And then after that, a top 10 for all health and safety, or for health and safety in all occupations. Okay. Anyway, take care. Bye for now.